Good morning or good afternoon at this point, guys. Really glad to be able to share this information with you. I'll share a little bit about why this presentation even happened. My wife Angie and I, and this is our daughter JL, we have two other kids. We've been working in Papua New Guinea for over 20 years, and the last 2 years have been something else for us. Before I even talk about identity theft, I'll just tell you, we're in a situation where starting in 2021, our tribe that we've been building relationships with, it took me 4.5 years to learn the language, that we've been doing church planting, evangelism, Bible translation, and literacy teaching, and all these things really going well. And then a terrorist gang, criminal gang, came up and started to brutalize the area, attacked our church, took the keys to our home, and raped and stole everyone's life savings, killed animals, killed people, all of this going on. And in the midst of this, when they were actually taking over in December of 2021, when they attacked our village where we work in Mibu, actually injured one of our dear Bible translation helpers, and they thought they had killed him. And just as we're getting him out and couldn't think of anything else other than what is going on, what's going to happen with all of this and so on, then my wife goes to make a purchase to update our prepaid cell phone for the service in New Guinea, and she's unable to do that with our credit card. Every once in a while we're overseas, something happens and they're just flagging a purchase, so I have to call and say, no, this is really me, and we're good to go. And so I didn't think too much of it. I definitely had a lot on my plate, and I wasn't ready, so we waited a couple days. It's just after Christmas, December 27, 2021. I called them and said, hey, there's some kind of block and we need to get it going. Oh, yes, sir. We have already taken your fraud claim, and we're taking it very seriously, so we're sending you a new card. What are you talking about? And come to find out, someone had actually gotten control of my Capital One credit card, was going on a massive spending spree, and they are already saying, hey, that's how they took over the account, was they convinced someone that they were me and got them to send a copy of my card to them. Digging a little further and getting our Allegan County Sheriff involved, finding out that they actually took over my Social Security card, took over my Michigan driver's license, and they had a more up-to-date copy of my Michigan driver's license than I did, sending it to a fake address in Kalamazoo. So as things were going from bad to worse in Mibu with this gang and doing the kinds of things that they were doing, on top of all that, my situation was getting worse, where the guy had gotten to the point where he was able to start withdrawing $5,000 a day from our checking account, PNC. And every time I would call PNC, they say call and talk to Capital One, because it was through Capital One that they were withdrawing the funds. I talk to Capital One, talk to PNC. They're the ones that are sending the money. And in the meantime, $5,000 a day is going by. And we're opposite time in the world. Over in Papua New Guinea, it's 14 hours ahead of us. So I have to stay up till midnight just to be able to make phone calls to people during business hours here. And I'm losing ground. As our bank account is about zero now, finally, I was able to get it to stop, and then this guy did not stop. He continued to now try open new accounts and do all these things, to the point where eventually they weren't even believing me anymore. He was able to convince them so quickly, and he had a more up-to-date, more valid driver's license than I did. Mine's the outdated, the old address. His is going to some fake, non-existent address in Kalamazoo. And it got to the point where there was nothing I could do. No one would. Managers would hang up on me. I had to leave Papua New Guinea and come back and reestablish my identity and put a block on all this stuff. that's our story. That's point one I just wanted to share with you. And then I'll be talking to you about the ID theft and a castle model, so you just kind of understand visually what our defenses are, how to strengthen our defenses, and then everything that I'm going to be talking about is on that double-sided sheet of paper. If you miss something that I'm talking about and you need clarification, we'll have a question and answer time at the end. I'm happy to share my contact information with you, but the basics of everything I'm sharing is on the sheet there. That is the checklist, and like Pastor said, please take this seriously. Make copies of it and share it with others as well. So let me just go on and say our attitude in having gone through all of this is we see, the Lord, He chose for us to go through this. And our attitude could be, woe is me, Lord, why did you let this happen? But it seems more and more that as we had learned a lot in the midst of this, this information isn't just for missionaries. And I have been asked to go all over the country and speak over Zoom to other organizations, not just our mission, and share this with missionaries. But increasingly, it's very, very clear this information needs to get out and be shared here. So we're throwing it on Facebook and so on. And my attitude sums up in 2 Corinthians 1:4, who comforteth us in all our tribulation, that we may be able to comfort them which are in any trouble, through the comfort from which we ourselves are comforted of God. We went through all of this, and now it's a comfort for us to comfort you in knowing here are some concrete things that you can use to make yourself a harder target. And if you do become the victim of identity theft, or you know someone who is, you will have tools to pass on to them as well. All right, so another verse that comes to mind is, this is a matter of stewardship. And I know as I'm speaking to different audiences, there are oftentimes people like, yeah, this is complicated, and this is for somebody else. And I'm telling you, if you are here, you are called by God to be alive during this day and age, and it doesn't matter how complicated it is. Sin makes life complicated no matter what age we're in. But you're called to this day and age. You have been called to stewardship in these very things that I'm putting before you. Don't shrink away from it. If you need help, ask people who can help you. But you are responsible for these things, and I want to just give you a little bit of information on what these tools are and what the situation is. So, as a matter of stewardship, we want to be able to say, as Jesus says, his Lord said unto him, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. We've been called to stewardship in a very complicated age. We need to be effective witnesses for the gospel, and this is one more thing that many of us are less aware of than we need to be. So that's another reason for this presentation, to allow you to all to be better stewards of your time, of your finances, of your sanity. Because going through identity theft, as we have, it will rob you of all of those things, more than you can imagine. All right, so let me just kind of clarify. When I'm talking about identity theft, if I were to ask any of you to raise your hands and say, has any of you had any issues with your debit card or your credit card? Yeah, it's very, very common. But what I need to just help define here is the difference between someone getting a copy of your card and using it. Yes, that's a kind of identity theft, but in terms of what law enforcement actually call real identity theft, it's quite different, The idea of your card getting stolen as a number, all you have to do is use it as a gas station, use it at a drive-thru in a restaurant, at a grocery store, and someone can skim that information, and that feels violating. But in terms of the financial institutions nowadays, they consider that just a cost of doing business. Whether it's your debit card, your credit card, and so on. Don't feel like that's what this is about. I'm talking about real identity theft. So, like, think about a skateboarder who's grabbing a hold of the back bumper of your car and taking it for a ride. That's like that common getting your credit card number stolen. Not that big of a deal if you are faithful to contact your bank as soon as you know about it and get that corrected. They will always reverse. Now, if you let that go 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, the longer you wait to deal with it, it could become more serious. So you want to take that seriously and take care of it. But identity theft is not like a skateboarder grabbing a hold of the back bumper of your car and taking a ride for a little time. Identity theft is like a carjacking, where you are kicked out of your car and someone else is now the driver behind the wheel. That is real identity theft, where someone has your information and at every turn can be you more than you can be you. And that's the situation we found ourselves in, and it's much more serious, much more costly in all these things, and that's the focus of what this information I'm putting in front of you is there. All right, so some ID theft stats. 47% of Americans have experienced ID theft. Identity theft costs people in the U.S. $56 billion, and that's just in 2020. It goes up every single year since then. Someone becomes a victim of identity fraud every 14 seconds. Stolen Social Security numbers on average sell for about $4 on the dark web. And U.S. stolen identity packets are sold from $5 to over $1,000, depending on how much valid and fresh information is along with other factors. So your information and the combining of your information is what they need to perpetuate this real identity theft that kicks you out of your financial driver's seat and puts someone else there. So let me just talk about the castle model so you can understand there are different layers of defenses. First of all, the first layer, if you think about a castle and what's going to stop an army from coming and taking over the castle, often traditionally think about a castle moat. And that moat there, your army gets up to that like, well, I want to get in the castle, but this is kind of in my way. Think of that as being our major forms of ID, like a Social Security number, your driver's license number. To a lesser extent, but it's still true, a passport, if you've got a passport, or your bank card, your credit card, the actual physical card. Those can be used to verify yourself, so they're there too. But definitely those two top ones are humongous there. And if those are not compromised, the whole game is up, and the fraudsters are going to have a hard time going any further. If someone's got those, they still need to get past your outer wall. You think about a castle, you've got that outer wall where all the defenders are, and you've got the towers and all of that. And that first outer wall, once you get past the moat, would be things like your cell phone number, your email address, your date of birth. This is all information. This isn't a physical thing, but this is information about you, who you work with, your previous addresses, the make and model of your car in the past, the information that companies will try to ask you to make sure it's really you. But if someone else has that information about you, they've been able to collect it some way, and oftentimes they trick us into giving it to them. Now, if they've gotten past the moat because they've gotten a copy of our driver's license and Social Security, now they can get past the second line of defense. This is getting serious. And then our inner keep, the last line of defense, is now not our major forms of ID or information about us, but it's really the institutions that many of us, we choose some institutions, like we choose what bank we're going to bank with. Well, now we have the customer service representatives and the fraud specialist at that bank, and they are that last line of defense. Other things we don't choose, but nevertheless, they're still part of our institutions, things like the IRS, things like the credit bureaus and so on. So I'll talk about that a little bit more. But if particularly if you have, let me just get forward here. If you have compromised Social Security number, compromised driver's license, those two pieces of information can be used like a battering ram now. They can actually use those pieces of information to gather the other things that they need to get all the way through. So that outer moat is really the most important thing. So how does that get out there? What kind of weaknesses? How does our driver's license number get out there, our Social Security number get out there? Well, sometimes we need to provide that information. We need to provide that on the phone. Sometimes we need to provide that information on a website. What if that website is compromised? What if that website that you're going to, you think is the actual website, but it's actually a fake website harvesting that information? Just like that, your information is gone. Not only that, but sometimes we need to provide that information in mail, and we put that in our mailbox and we send it out. Well, thieves know this. So mailboxes are often being intercepted, and things are being taken out of that. There are criminals that will get information about you from our trash, because we throw that information away when we don't need it anymore. Things to be aware of, but these are weak points. Our phones, our computers, our own activities, and what we do on the in person and in the mail, and so on. So think about, people want to get more and more information. The more information they can get about you and combine with what they already know, the more they can sell your information to criminals for. And we provide that information in droves through harmless fun like on Facebook. You ever seen that where someone gets on and says, hey, who currently lives furthest from where they were born? A fun quiz, and you see your grandma and you see your grandchildren, and everyone and your brother is filling that out and saying, I was born in Grand Rapids, but now I live in Anchorage, Alaska, and on and on and on. And don't think that that's all designed just for the fun of, no. That is a data harvesting operation. You need that information to verify you as you, and they need that information to verify them as you. These are not just fun things to do online. A couple others we see, take a quiz to see if you're related to someone famous. Any thoughts to what kind of information they might be trying to mine theirs, or a typical question you might be asked to verify who you are? Sir, what is your mother's maiden name? Well, now if we're talking about ancestry, they can put two and two together. And some of that is then verifiable online and whatnot. What is your pet's first name? They're going after passwords. Oftentimes we use birth dates or things that if someone knows enough about you, they might be able to guess. And these criminals have time, and they have computer programs that have all the time in the world to try different passwords. We're just giving them a shortcut if we're providing that information on social media. Name a song that brings you back to high school. What year did you graduate from high school? The song could narrow it down to a couple years, All these things that we think of as just innocent fun are being used against us. So that's just one kind of example to have us be a little bit more aware. But again, if they can get past that and they get our Social Security number or driver's license one way or the other, they can hack our companies or our insurance or our employer or whatever and get that information. Nowadays, you hear about hacking just a couple times every week. And you might have been doing everything perfectly to be guarding your information, but it's already out there because other companies needed that, and they've got it stored on their servers, and then it gets downloaded by a Russian hacker, and off he goes. So you can be doing everything right and still get completely taken, even if you're always guarded all the time. So if they can get past that, then that last final line of defense, the institutions, the customer service reps, the teller at the bank, and so on, They want to verify that you are who you say you are. But if they already have all this information, that last line of defense does no good. And they'll have their protocols and all that, but they see you've got a driver's license, it verifies and checks out, yep, that's the right Social Security number, yep, that's the mother's maiden name. They may be suspicious, but they've got to follow protocol, and they let person in, and there it goes. There goes bank account information, there goes your reputation. Because in our case, my name was used to commit over $130,000 in fraudulent transactions that I did not initiate or authorize in any way. Just went on a spending spree. And then over and over and again, all these accounts, my credit rating went from perfect to almost nothing. So how do we strengthen our defenses? So this is where I'm going to start going through the actual checklist point by point. Number one, and many people, this might be the first time you've ever even heard, or maybe you've heard of these mentions, but what are they there for? The credit bureaus. In the United States, we have three main credit bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. You might have heard of those names before. I'm calling all of us to be responsible, to be stewards of this information now. We need to be aware of what these are there for. 1/3 of all banks, credit card companies, anything that has to do with finances, loans, and whatnot, even like the newer online-only banking and so on, they all report to these credit unions, and they also ask these credit unions for information about someone who's making an application. And that's where, what's your credit score, all of that, it goes to these three companies. So there are ways you can defend yourself by getting in touch with these companies and doing what's called a lock or a freeze. So you want to set up accounts with them, and he's looking at our castle. This is like, you got the moat, that's our major forms of ID. You've got the information about you, the outer walls. The inner walls, these institutions, they have 4 major towers on the corners of them. 3 of those major towers are the credit bureaus. Again, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. And my recommendation is to create accounts with these. If you don't do this, after you create an account and freeze and so on, it just means you're leaving it open for someone else who can use it for their own purposes. Create accounts, and maybe you put up your hand and say, Chris, I've never taken a loan. I object to credit cards. I do not believe in going into debt or anything like that. I opt out of that whole system. That's great. However, the criminals don't care. And if you've not set up an account with them and locked it down, you're wide open for them to use your good name. Yes? I do have a Q&A at the end, but if I misspoke or something, yeah, keep that in mind. Good. You want to go ahead and do that now. Even if you opt out of the credit system, take number 1 seriously. And this is, I put it at the beginning of our checklist because it's the most annoying, obtuse step of all the process, but it's absolutely the most important. These credit bureaus don't make it that easy, and they are trying to get you to pay for monthly service and so on. 2, you do not need to pay for these services. You can do this. So actually, when this guy took over my financial life, he, early on after he got my Social Security number and driver's license, he went right to these places and he created accounts with them so then he could download decades of my financial history. Yes?
I just froze my phone the other day and you can do it online.
Yes, yes.
Do it on the phone.
Just make sure your computer is secure. Yeah. Make sure your computer is secure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that is very important. When you freeze it, it is not a permanent thing. The very process of logging into your account after you create a username and password and verifying you are who you say you are and say, freeze my credit, you're only doing that for a third of all the banks and financial institutions. That's why you have to do this for all three. But then when you go to, like, your business needs a loan for some reason, you would ask the institution a bank that you're trying to get the loan from, which of the three credit bureaus do you use? And they'll tell you. And then you go and just unfreeze your profile with that bureau. Why leave all three open when you only need a smaller window to open? And as soon as it's approved, because that's all they need your credit file to be unlocked for, for the approval process. Once you're approved and you've gotten it, you go and you close the door behind it. By default, everyone's door is wide open. So yes, close it down. It does not affect your current credit cards, your current banks to freeze or unlock. Different bureaus use different terminology. It's the same idea. It does not affect your current relationships with any of your financial institutions to do this. It's only if you're applying to something new. If you're going to try to open up a new account with a cell phone, they also will check your profile and so on. So just be aware, and you would ask, AT&T or whoever, which of the three credit bureaus do I need to unlock for this? It should be a normal. If you've done it a couple times, you don't think it's a big deal. If you've never done it before, it just feels like a mountain for you to get over. But once it becomes normal, it's like checking your email. It's okay. It feels like a big thing. It's okay. But it is. It feels challenging, and that's why I put that at the very beginning. So yes, please do that for all three. If you have the option, some of these allow you to set up security questions and the security PIN. This is a 4 to 6 digit number, so that someone else, if they've got your username and password for Experian, can't log in as you and just unlock it. So just that extra little bit of protection to make sure that's really just you doing that, so on and so forth. You can do some of the work over the phone with these credit bureaus as well. So I do include the information there. I found, though, that they change those numbers constantly, so your experience may vary. I try to keep it up to date, but we'll see. All right, number two. This is the other tower. 4 big corner towers of our last line of defense, and this is another bureau, but it's the checking bureau. So typically, this is the part of my presentation that many people have never heard of, but it's just as important, and this was a $15,000 problem for me because I was ignorant of point number 2. You want to freeze your checking profile. So bank loans, car loans, all that's credit, okay? But a checking profile is another bureau that keeps track of all U.S. customers so that if a bank wants to open a new checking account, they'll run by that database to make sure it's safe to open an account for you. Well, in my case, since this guy took over my credit card and I did not have a checking account with Capital One, step number 2 for him was to open a checking account with Capital One. Because I had set up, as a missionary, it's hard for me to write a check every month to pay off my credit card. So I have it automatically, the balance withdrawn from my checking, my PNC checking, to pay off my Capital One. He loved that. So he created a checking account with Capital One, and it was still linked to my PNC account, $5,000 a day, $5,000 a day, $5,000 a day. Had I done this step, he wouldn't have been able to do a thing of that kind of damage. This, fortunately, unlike step number 1, is the easiest thing. This is an automated phone call that you can take, and it will protect your profile from someone creating a new checking account and then writing fake checks in your name, also possibly withdrawing or making a debit card in your name and going around using that fraudulently and it will take the banking system some time after he's already done all this damage in your name. If you freeze your checking profile, none of that is possible. So it's a quick automated phone call. You will receive a PIN in the mail, and you can't unfreeze it. You will receive a PIN in the mail, and you can't unfreeze without using that PIN. So if you're on the cusp of creating a new checking account because you need another checking account for some reason, you might want to wait, because this is a much slower process of undoing to send all by snail mail and so on. So in that then, most people, though, already have all the checking accounts that they need. So in most cases, that's just fine. All right, number 3. If we want to go and talk to her here in person, somebody. Number 3 is to request a tax ID PIN. And the reason for this is you have another whole kind of fraud that is a huge problem, and that is someone pretending to be you who beats you to the punch and fills out a tax return in your name. They have enough information for you. This is just money on the table for them. And the number one way that the IRS is trying to crack down on this and make it much harder to do is to create a tax ID PIN that they will randomly generate a new number every year, send that to you in the mail, and then no one can fill out a tax form in your name unless it has the matching number for that year. And that's about a half hour of your time to set up with a program called ID.me. It's not just the IRS, but a lot of colleges, universities, and government agencies all over the United States use it, and it will actually want to use a laptop that has a camera to scan your face, all these things that it will do, but it's not terribly difficult, and then you're off you go. And now is probably a good time, if you've just filed your taxes, then to go ahead and do that for 2024 tax season, moving on forward. All right, number 4, this is another bureau. It's not that critical, but it's still, you don't want to give the criminals any extra help in using your name for nefarious purposes. This is another bureau called NCTUE, and it's for utilities. If you're going to set up a water bill, if you're going to create a new electricity bill, phone bill, all those kinds of things, those companies, not all, but many, will go to NCTUE, say, do you know anything about this person? And then they'll get that information, decide whether to create that new account for you or not. Well, in my case, had I done this one, I saw like the number one thing besides alcohol and Uber drives that this guy was spending money on, the biggest thing was cell phones. Because all the work of identity fraud that he does is almost all on the phone. And had I locked this down, I would have been a bit more of an impediment to him, and he probably would have moved on to the next identity packet a little sooner. So I recommend it. It's not that big a deal. It's maybe 15, 20 minutes on their website to fill it out, and now you can have that frozen. You can then have a username and log in and go back and unfreeze it if you are going to create a new, if you're going to switch to a different electricity company or something like that. So that's number 4. All right. Talking about strengthening your defenses, number 5 recommendation is to enable notifications for all of your sensitive accounts. This is something that as in February, as we were already back in the United States, we had already lost our Capital One account to him, and that account was irrevocably destroyed by all the stuff that he had done. We were down to our last credit card, Chase. And thankfully, I'd already done this step that I went into the security and privacy settings for my Chase account, as we did for all of our important accounts online, and just like, if there's a notification option, I just ticked it. And then a week or so later, he went after my Chase credit card. He had downloaded all my information because he's the one who created an account with the credit bureaus before I did. So he already knew that I had a Chase account. And he started taking over, and I got a notification, your request to change your password has been successfully created. What? This was on a Saturday, one morning in February of 2022. No? But I didn't click on the link, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, but instead I immediately pulled out the credit card from my wallet and called the number on the credit card. Hey, is this for real? Did something just happen with my password? Oh yeah, we're sorry you're dealing with identity theft, but yeah, we're on it. What are you talking about? So then I drove immediately before the branch in Grand Rapids closed to a Chase Bank, and started working with them to find out, yep, this guy is constantly calling them, even as I'm talking them through what to not do. He's trying to undo everything that I'm doing. And we are able to stop it, and I still have my Chase account today. Though he did actually do some damage, they wrote it all off because I caught it so quickly. So yeah, all your shopping sites, generally the more things that they offer that you can find out, is like a real-time monitoring. You can see if something's going on with your account. But you know he's going to then target your phone number and try to change it to his. He's going to try to change your address and your email address, change those to his, and so on. But as long as it's still going to the right places, you can get that information pretty quick. However, caution. Just like I said, when you get these kinds of alerts coming in, hackers know that we're going to respond to those alerts. You get a text, you get an email, it might really get our blood rolling, and it probably should, but what if it's actually not from the bank? What if it's an attempt to make you take action, and some of the actions they're trying to get you to do? Call this number. And for your convenience, it's right there in the text. Click on this link, and we'll get you straightened away. And it's, by and large, probably not them. So that's where you don't ever call a number because it's in a text or an email. You don't click on a link because it's in a text or an email unless you're absolutely sure. But a lot of times these come in, and we're so upset about what's going on, we want to take action right there. We're going to go for the most convenient option, and they know that. They know human psychology. You want to take out your wallet, go to your bank card, your credit card, or whatever the company purports it to be, and you call that number. So that's caution there.
So even when you get a notification,
Especially.
don't respond.
They will spoof it. They will spoof it. Now, I'll talk a little bit even more that on phone calls. You actually can get phone calls. And some of you probably raise your hand. You've gotten phone calls from your bank. But was it really your bank? All right, number 5. This is a big one, but it's not that hard to do. Enable two-factor login for all sensitive accounts. A lot of banks now, you don't have a choice. They are doing this, or you don't have an account with them. Good on them. But some of the websites that we utilize don't, and it's kind of optional. You want this. You don't want people logging in, pretending to be you, even on eBay or something like that. You just don't want to have that kind of risk. So enable this up. So what is two-factor authentication? Have you ever had it where you're trying to log into something and you click, you put in your username and your password, you say log in, but then it doesn't log in right away. It says, we're going to send a number to your phone or a number to your email or something like that. That's two-factor authentication, and that's good. However, I don't know if you can see it's the bottom, cell and email verification itself does have vulnerabilities. It's a good thing, but the criminals are getting ahead of it. Here's one scenario that's getting more and more common. It's called SIM swap fraud. You know, that scenario where you're getting ready to go on a hunting trip and you're saying to your buddies, hey, I'm going to be off Facebook for the next couple weeks and going to Alaska. That's the time. That's the time that they're going to attempt to go for a SIM swap fraud situation, because they now have all the information. If they've already got your cell phone number and they know what your plans are, good time to act against you. So you're off out of cell phone range, and then they call in a panic. Someone stole my phone, AT&T. Can you please send me a SIM card right away? Well, they already knew, if they had downloaded information about you or bought that in a packet, that you bank with such a bank and all of this. But now if they can get rushed Federal Express a copy of your your SIM card, they'll put that in your phone. Now they have your phone number. If they make a phone call, it's your number. And the number that you have in your cell phone has been deactivated because they've got it now. And now they go on a spree getting access to all your accounts and doing as much damage and selling that to their buddies and so on. That's just one scenario of if somehow your phone is stolen, or they can swap the SIM cards in their phone for your information. And email the same way. If they can hack and get a copy of your password for your email, they can do a lot of damage. So there's vulnerabilities there, and it gets around two-factor authentication. That's the whole reason that they even care about those things. All right, but still, do that. So a better way, if you have the option, instead of doing a two-factor authentication to your email address or to your cell phone number to receive a text, there's another option that's called Authenticator apps. This is an app that runs on your phone, and it is only running a local copy on your phone that's constantly, every 30 seconds, coming up with new numbers. And your phone doesn't even have to be connected to the internet. You can generate a code, doing it automatically, and provide that to say you really are you. So someone would have to really have your phone. They couldn't do a SIM swap fraud on you. So some recommended apps, Angie and I, we use Microsoft Authenticator. That's this one over on the left side. Google Authenticator, Duo, these are different ones that are out there. There's quite a few. Apple has one, so on and so forth. But these are all reputable apps that can be generating these numbers instead of having it go to a text number or an email number. So that's something to consider. All right, number 6, you want to make sure that your contact information is up to date. This is a huge part of our defenses, to have our contact information be protected and not get swapped out for someone else's. Every time one of our accounts were being attacked, that was the first place they went to try and change the password on our account, and then boom, that's not my email address, this one is. That's not my cell phone number, this one is. And it'd be these fake burner numbers and fake email addresses that just got created in a short period of time, so on and so forth, and then added to a packet to sell to other criminals. So you want to be always mindful, because in the case of my PNC account, they had actually gotten on at one point convincing a customer service rep to reset my password. Then they didn't go and start doing any damage. They just changed one of my addresses, my home address, to a different address. And then they backed off. And I didn't see that for some time. But when I got in, oh, look at this. They somehow got into my account here. And so the only way they ended up getting money out was through the whole back end with Capital One. But you want to make sure that you remove old addresses. Always make sure it's the up-to-date number for all of your important accounts. And you want to request, varies from company to company, whether you can request a block on contact information changes. Some banks are pretty good if you say, I will only authorize changes to my contact information if I come in person and verify myself. And if they honor that, that is a great bank to deal with, because it's really hard. If your contact information can be swapped willy-nilly online, you're more vulnerable. So something to keep in mind. All right, number 7, make sure each sensitive account has a secure password. Secure being that it's unique secure that it's not predictable. It's not your dog's name or your anniversary date or something simple like that. It needs to be complex. Complex meaning it's got letters and numbers, capital letters. It's got some special characters in it, and it's long enough. You don't want to go for the short. But then oftentimes, like you look at this number 7, like, oh my goodness, I already struggle with all the passwords that I have. And now I have to have these be unique and complex. You're adding a lot more work, and I do, because these guys have all kinds of time on their hands, and they find out, as they expect most Americans, reuse the same password over and over and over again. So if they can log into your YouTube account and hack that and they got your password, now they'll just try that on everything else that they learn about you, and as they do log in and successfully, they can use that information to find out more about you, and on and on and on, and it cascades, because human nature is we just do what's easy. And they know that, and they love that. So this is very important. So later on in my presentation, I have a strong recommendation, that you consider using a password manager. And that can help tremendously. It can game changers, that you can keep good security, have unique, complex passwords for all your accounts, and there's not one account that reuses the same one over again, and the app itself will manage the security of it. So I'll talk about that in a bit. Number 8, a big one. Request a voice password or PIN to protect each sensitive account. Of the local banks that I've dealt with, I'm not going to name names and so on, but some have done this better than others. But this is a situation where with PNC, they have been very strong. And there's a situation where if someone calls saying to be me, they will end the conversation fairly quick as they're going through the verification. Can I get your social security number? Yes, they got it. Can I get your driver's license number? Yes, they got it. And in many cases, that's enough for a bank, and they're ready to move on. But they will always now, since I set this up with them, ask, now tell me what is your verbal password. And my identity thief never knew my voice password, and it frustrated him. So he tried to get it from me, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is a password that you make up that you then just tell this person. And then that's one more little last line of defense to make sure you're really you. Because if they've already got all this other information about you, you don't want them going through that last line of defense. So you're giving them that option. So setting up a password or a PIN, whenever they call, it's a verification step. Not everyone does it, so you might choose to switch to an organization that does take your security seriously. And I'm not going to name the name of the bank, but there is one that we'll set it up for you, but then they weren't faithful to always use it. So that's another thing is I would do for your safety and for your peace of mind, challenge your financial institutions by every once in a while calling them and make sure they're asking you in the right steps. If they skip the voice password, you give them a warning, like, if this happens again, I'm changing to a bank that I know takes this seriously. That's just my recommendation. Voice passwords, very, very powerful thing that are saving me even now. Number 9, this is a big one. I kind of already mentioned earlier, to avoid clicking on links sent to you in email or text. Always be vigilant. They look convincing. You're busy with other things, and it's just convenient to click on the link. Don't ever click on a link from your daughter, from your bank, from the United States Postal Service, or whoever they say they are, just because it looks like it's from them. You need to be absolutely convinced it really is. One thing is, Facebook Messenger, it's my mom, and she said, hey, take a look at this video. Well, before I click on that, Mom, I call her, did you really send me this link? And is it really important? Because you know how leery I am about clicking on links. And in a few cases, it wasn't actually her. I'm not surprised. Number 10, be hyper vigilant whenever receiving incoming phone calls. It's not a situation where you're calling and they're asking you this information, but if they call you and they're asking this information, first of all, they're going to try to catch you off guard. They're going to be convincing. In my situation, remember, my identity thief was having a hard time getting funds out of my PNC account once the back door through Capital One was closed. My voice password had been set up, and he couldn't get past it. So this nice, sweet-sounding lady called me late-ish at night, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and said, "Sir, I'm from PNC Fraud Detection, and I'm so sorry to tell you we have another issue on your account. And but before we can talk to you about the details, I need your voice password." Think about that scenario and why that should be raising alarm bells. Your bank should never call you asking you for important information, especially that precious voice password. If they have something important and they're actually calling you, it's going to be something like, there's an issue, we need you to come in to your local branch. But they're not going to discuss this on the phone. If they are trying to, it needs to be setting off alarm bells. This lady was trying to be as convincing as she was, but hold on. You're asking me. You're the one who called me. It was the PNC customer service number. Good. I ended the conversation, called PNC. No, sir, that was not us. And you know we never would call and ask you for that information. If you call us, yes, we will ask, because we need to verify that you are who you say you are. But we would never call and ask you for that or any of the other information. And that's across the board with all financial institutions. If they didn't follow that, they would all cease to exist as banks, because criminals would know how to exploit. But yeah, be careful. They're good at phishing, making the number that they're calling you from or texting or email look like it's official. That's technically just very simple for them to do. It doesn't mean you need to trust them. Number 11, verify customer service numbers. They're going to often put it there right in the text or an email, but you need to go to your wallet, go to your purse, pull out the debit card, pull out a trusted number you really know is safe, and call it, or be a little paranoid and just go right to your local branch and talk to them there. Fake call centers are there. That's a big fraud going on, is people saying, hey, we noticed there's a virus on your computer. Call this number. And it'll sound like a really busy call center, because it is. But it's a fake call center that is walking people through how to get their uninfected computers infected by their viruses, and charge your credit card for the fees and all those kinds of things. Awful, awful situation. And lo and behold, those are 800 numbers. That makes you think it's legitimate. It's not. It's not. Some of our missionaries recently falling for that one, even on the field. Number 12, this is just a strong recommendation. Consider purchasing identity theft. Some of you may already have some identity theft, so you want to just verify whether you're already covered through your insurance company, through your employer, or something like that. But if not, my recommendation is give Xander Insurance a look, give LifeLock a look. LifeLock is like the Rolls Royce, and they are expensive, $80 to $90 a month. Xander has comparable $1 million of out-of-pocket expenses should you become the victim of identity theft. It's the same as what LifeLock does for $12 a month for couples or $8 a month for a single individual. Yeah. Xander Insurance. It's if you've heard of Dave Ramsey, that's one of his partnering organizations. Zander. And it's written down on the sheet of paper there. Very, very useful to us because even though we weren't covered at the time of all these damages, it didn't matter to them. Like they couldn't retroactively provide me financing for the money that we were out, but they did provide us a specialist, someone who could then start to work through the recovery process, and that saved us over $10,000 in having someone who has us customer service rep who would help make those phone calls for us, get us kind of to the head of the line, because sometimes when you're calling banks, you have to wait hours on the phone. And particularly dealing with my Capital One, there's so much complexity. All the stuff that this guy said that was still on their file, plus all the stuff that I was saying, it would, by the time I was wrapping things up with them over 9 months of dealing with them, it would take a new customer service rep about 3 hours of reading through my case file before a simple question could be answered. And you know what? Every time I called Capital One, it was a brand new person. I never talked to the same person twice. And so being able to cut through the waiting line by working with the customer service rep with Xander, who could be on a third-party call with me, tremendous. And someone who could verify the stuff that I was saying and provide that information, backing up what I was saying, can't put a price on that. So in the end, there's a little bit of a story, but it did save us over $10,000 there. So also, particularly with LifeLock, if you go with them, they'll provide a decent cybersecurity suite. You want to make sure, regardless whether you go with them or somebody else, that you have good security on your phone, especially on your laptops, because if you've been compromised, it's like now you have a spy that every time you are doing anything online, they get all that information real time and they know what you're doing and on and on. So you really want to make sure that those doors are closed to them. That's what the cybersecurity stuff is there for. All right, number 13, as I had mentioned earlier, oh my goodness, is there the mountain of usernames and passwords that we have, and trying to keep all that straight. That's where password managers really can come into help. There are quite a few free password managers, and some of them might be good, but kind of the principle that my organization is really asking us as missionaries to consider that I want to pass on to you is, if you are getting a service for free, you're not the customer. They may be mining you, or you're certainly the product if you're getting a service for free. Much better as a principle to enter into a business relationship with someone who takes security seriously, where you are the customer and there's no way that the incentives can be mixed around over your security. So while there are some possibly good ones out there, I have for some time now been using 1Password, and it's been amazing for me to have literally hundreds of different kinds of accounts. And if you were to ask me, do you know your password for Amazon? I could say, I do not. I don't even care what my password for Amazon is, but I know it's secure, and It's going to be very hard for someone else to get. These guys, if you use it and you're not using a notepad and so on, they provide $1 million bounty to any hacker who can prove they've been able to hack their system and get someone's critical information out. They have a good pass record, and I pay a couple dollars a month for our family to be covered by them, and the convenience is amazing. For me to go to a website, click on the little 1Password icon, and now I'm logged in. And nice thing about that too is Angie can go, she can update some information on one of our websites. I can go on my phone, go to that website, and it's already got the new updates that she did with it. Amazing. And they're backing it up with a $1 million bounty that guarantees that it's being kept safe, and I'm paying them. I'm their customer. They're not in any kind of cross incentives to sell my information to somebody else. So I appreciate that. And there are several others. I just don't have personal experience with them, but I've heard that they're also very good. So something like 1Password or 1Password I recommend. Number 14, now this is a tough one, but the industry standard is if your device is over 4 years old, it is increasingly considered very vulnerable because more and more they're not keeping up to date with the updates to make sure that they're secure, and especially your phone, especially your laptop and so on, you really need to consider keeping that up to date. Otherwise, why are you using this device that could possibly be a spy against your own interests? But that does enter into a whole stewardship thing. Do you have the finances to keep an up-to-date phone and so on? I want you to be aware, though, that at 4 years, it's considered out of date. And not only am I talking about the physical devices, but the software running on those always needs to be up to date. If you have that option where it says you have an update available, take time and prioritize keeping your devices up to date. They are there predominantly, those updates are there to protect you. And to ignore that for too long is also a vulnerability. So avoid using old hardware and software. Okay, so that's the identity theft defenses. Let me just real quick go through my responding to ID theft section here. Number one, if you or someone else you know is learning that they become the victim of real identity theft, make sure they get a copy of this checklist and go through it. I mean, if you've already gone through it after today, you probably aren't even going to be the victim of identity theft, or you will be so annoying to your thief that he'll just pass on to the next person because you've blocked them at so many turns. You're not really worth it. But if you do become the victim of identity theft, probably you've not gone through the checklist. Number one, go through the checklist. After that, official number one, file a report with the authorities. You go to the FTC website for identity theft, so that I've got the address there. Fill that report out, and then jurisdiction, and not all law enforcement agencies know this, but jurisdiction is your home address. That's where the law considers all identity theft against you to have happened today, your home address. So you contact your local sheriff, and you let them know. You let them know everything that you know has happened, as many details as you can provide, and your FTC case number that they've given, so it all can be cross-referenced and combined together and so on. You'll do that. Number two, go to those credit bureaus through annualcreditreport.com and get a 3-bureau credit report that gives you the motherload of all your information that those 3 bureaus have on you. And that's good because then you can learn for real what's going on. How bad is this identity theft going? Because all the new accounts that they're creating, if it's a soft inquiry or a hard inquiry, Those are applications that they're filling out, pretending to be you. What's been approved? What's the balance level for all those? It's amazing. Also, were they successful in getting any wrong contact information put in on your profile? All of that will be there. And so you're becoming the victim of identity theft. How bad is it? That's what step number 2 is all about. All right, number 3, you buy a notebook because now you're going to be spending a lot of time on the phone, in person at banks and so on, and you want to be writing down, journaling every interaction, the important stuff, what's happened, what's the date, who is it that you talked to, those kinds of things. Because you will be having to refer back to some of that information and so on. Number 4, you want to contact each of those financial institutions that you have, your insurance company, your bank, your home loan company, whatever it is, and your employer, letting them know just what all has happened. And again, if you've gone through the checklist, hopefully you already have some voice passwords set up and so on. All right, and then number 5, send a registered snail mail letter with everything about what's going on that you know of, and get that notarized and send to Experian, send that to Equifax, send it to TransUnion. In my case, that was $60 for each of those because it was just a massive file of information, getting it all notarized and so on. I found out that my financial planning company, Raymond James, they actually provide free notary services to their customers. So had I known that, that would save me some money. But now we do, and we use them for that notary and so on. And then number 5 is, yep, send it out to them. You want to make sure you include copies of your ID, include your recent bank and utility statements so that they can verify, yep, this is really you and it's current. ID theft reports from your local and FTIC or FTC. List your current and previous contact information so that just all lines up with what information they have on you, and then send that all in a detailed notarized statement. Contact your employer and insurance companies, retirement, so on and so forth. Number 7, last resort, but it's really the only thing we could do to just put an end to all the monkey business that this guy was doing, was to request a new Social Security number, request a new Michigan driver's license number. Social Security number was way easier than anyone thought it would be. The thing is, they don't even know about this. In my situation, I just had a short time that we wanted to get back to the P&G as quickly as possible, went into a local Social Security branch, laid out my case, this is what's going on, and the first reaction was, oh, sir, changing your Social Security number, this is a big deal and it could cause all kinds of problems. It's really the last resort. I'm saying this is last resort territory, and I then started to share all of the financial damage that was still unfolding that we knew at that point in time. There would be more after that, and then, okay, then yes. What she didn't know, what her branch manager didn't know, was I could have had my request approved that very day, and within a week I could have had a new Social Security number. But what they ended up doing is they put all that information in a file, sent it to Baltimore, the regional office, and just waited for a response from his superiors. And when a month later they wrote back and said, manager at this local branch, what are you doing? You issue new Social Security numbers every day. This guy clearly is showing damages. Issue him a new Social Security number. It's done. He called back, I'm sorry, I didn't know I had the authority. Here you go. So it's not that big of a deal. What was the big deal and why it stretched our time here in Michigan to 5 months was the Michigan driver's license. You can't just go to Secretary of State and fill out the form saying, I don't like my driver's license number, give me a new number. That's not something they do over the counter, but instead that has to go through local sheriff. And in our case of Allegan County Sheriff, they had never gone through that process. They clearly saw it needed to happen, But they ended up going through a big, thick wad of paperwork. I ended up going to a meeting with the state investigator in Lansing to go through the thing. And after a number of months, they issued me a new Michigan driver's license with a different number on it. That's a big deal. And so all the more reason you don't want that to get lost and out there. Okay, you probably have a few questions, but that is everything that I have, just going through those checklist things. If anyone needs to go, some of you already left already, that's all right. Totally understand, but if you do have a question, shoot. Yeah.
One thing I want to mention about Apple phone have a thing where you can turn off unknown numbers,
Mhm.
and the only numbers that come through are known numbers. Now, I do know that I do remember you saying that the bank number can be
It
correct.
can be spoofed. Yeah.
So, but it helps. It's one more thing that helps heal this Apple
Yeah.
download from happening to you.
Another common one that is scamming people is it's your grandson. He's been in an accident, and it's the sheriff. Can you please help, and so on. Another kind of clue, very common, is hey, can you pay in Bitcoin? Or hey, can you go to Home Depot and get some gift cards and that kind of stuff? Alarm bells should be going off. If you've gone down that far of a conversation where they're thinking they're about to get paid and they're talking to you about doing it through a gift card, 100% scam, 100%. But no, yeah. Yes, yeah. If someone claims they're from the IRS, if someone claims they're from your local sheriff's office, if they claim that they're from anything like that, take down their name, because it could be, but say, I need to verify by, and then you go to what you know is the legitimate number, and you try to get a hold of that person that way. You can't. No. Yep.
I talked to him for 5 minutes. He got my son's name from me somehow. You know, he just answered the phone and. Did he sound like him? Was it with AI that he sounded like him? Well, I wasn't expecting it to be a different voice.
Yeah.
He said,
Hey, Mom.
this doesn't sound like you. And he said, well, I've got a sore throat. And so I didn't think anything about it. No, I'm talking away to him, you know, and all of a sudden it was like, you know, I had a accident and I need some money. And I said, Chris, this is not you. He said, yes, it is. Yes, it is. I said, my Chris doesn't usually call for money. And that's where I heard a case like that, to where all your family members have a certain, like a code name or something.
Yeah.
Where,
Having a family voice password, very, very helpful. Very, very helpful.
when I got home from shopping, he said, you better call Chris, because he doesn't feel well. And he said, you better call Chris, because he's been in a car accident, and you better talk to him. I don't know what he said, I couldn't hear him. It wasn't Chris. I called Chris, and I said, what's up, what happened? He said, what do you mean? And I'm like, oh, no. So now we have a password that if he's got a sore throat, he better know the name of his dogs. So, yeah. And I am one of them that has lost my, credit card. My credit cards, my wallet was stolen. They've got my social security number, my driver's license, and then took my credit card for $5,000.
Sorry.
So I've done a few of those things, but I didn't do 3 credits.
You need to do all three. And the checking bureau, NCTUE. Yeah.
And if anyone's considering protection, I do machine.
Okay. Very good. Yes. at a minimum every 4 years. And keep the software up to date every time an update comes out. Then don't keep using it. Absolutely. You should be afraid to use it.
Yeah.
Same. Absolutely.
Yeah, because they only get 10 tries, like if you have an Apple phone, they only get 10 tries, and you'll never get into that phone unless Apple takes it apart.
And another tricky thing to keep in mind is, especially in busier cities and so on, people are targeting, like in a restaurant, if they're over your shoulder, waiting for you to put in your passcode. Because they don't even bother stealing your phone if they don't know it. But if they know it, oftentimes they'll try to have like a camera that keeps an eye on everybody to see if they're punching in their numbers. And once they have that, now you're a target. So that's where trying to use Face ID is more secure. Thumb ID? Yep. And yet the Lord has called you for this time. So, yes. And that's not a free service, I take it. $15. So, yeah. So that in and of itself would lend much more credibility. Yeah. Because you have lots of places they'll keep your computer update for free and check your viruses for free. That principle of if you're not paying for a service, you are not the customer, you are the product.
Every once in a while, I get spam calls and I do answer. And my first reaction to them is, I want to tell you about the Lord Jesus.
Here we go.
Oh, they won't even answer that. My husband used to say, I'm going to be here just a couple minutes, I want to talk to you about the Lord. And they hang up.
Yes.
Somebody else's account.
For what reason? For what reason?
Like on their checking account where you're helping them
Oh, yeah.
and stuff, and you're just on that account. Can they somehow, he has been hacked, can they somehow come back to me just because I added my name to his account? Do you know? That's what I'm worried about. Did you add your numbers too? No, it's his account. I just added my name to his checking account so that I could pay all his bills. And then
Now, it's probably not what I would be more concerned about if a device has been compromised and for some reason you log into your information on that compromised account. That's a problem. But if you're using your safe or your uncompromised device and logging in, as long as you're logging into the legitimate site, we are okay. Yeah, you can help other people.
a lot of times when you get older, your kids become on your account
Yes.
and stuff like that.
But if you are helping other people, all the more reason to take security seriously. Because if you become compromised, it now doesn't just affect you, but it affects these other people.
I just have a track phone though. I don't have these expensive phones, so getting all the security stuff, I can't get.
It's a track phone running Android? Yes. So yes, you need to keep that up to date. It doesn't matter whether it's track phone or any of the other companies. If it's an iPhone or Android, you need to make sure it's not old hardware and the software is up to date. Please, please just know that my heart is to be a comfort. But sometimes if we need to be shooken out of our complacency and to know you really are in danger, now you're taking steps to be secure, you can feel more confident. So I actually did not get a chance to update this presentation, but I can pull it up on my phone. Let me just go around and show you guys. Here's the gentleman who is now in Virginia State Penitentiary.
Yay! How did they do that? Awesome. Oh, that's amazing. For how long?
Well, he's looking at about 30 years in concurrent
So you're not the only one then, right? That you did this to.
charges, and that's just his Virginia State victims. I'm not part of why he's in jail as far as his sentences go, but here, I'm going to show you this. But I am part of why he's been caught. Yes. So when he took over my Capital One account, one particular customer service representative, just for a few moments, I was able to graciously get access to my account. When I logged in, he had put his profile picture on the profile. And it had some curious features on it. For one thing, it had this kind of a blue background. It's a copy of his Michigan driver's license. And yes. Well, and it doesn't quite look like him because this is my Michigan driver's license photo. And what you'll notice as you look at the two pictures, that's my hair that he kept, but photoshopped his ugly face on there. And so then after we had noticed that, I set that aside. He also targeted another missionary with our organization in Indonesia. And this gentleman, this is during the age of COVID, he went into a credit union in Minnesota and was trying to use his name to withdraw money from a credit union that guy didn't have an account with, but he was still trying to utilize it and so on. And that credit union graciously, because a lot of times different banks and companies don't want to share this information, they got some security camera footage of him, sent it to him, he sent it to me, and then I was able to pass that on to our local sheriff. And between these photos here and his photoshopped copy of his face, that's where we end up with this guy being in jail now, because they were able to run it through the FBI database and got him. Now, he's been in prison for a while now. He's put on some weight, but that is him. Well, guys, thank you very much for the opportunity to share this with you. Being forewarned is forearmed.
You've been listening to a free message from Hickory Corners Bible Church. You're welcome to pass this recording along to others, but please don't charge for it or alter it without written permission from Hickory Corners Bible Church. For more information about us, please visit us online at hickorycornersbible.org. There you can connect with us as well as join in supporting this ministry. You can also follow us on Facebook and YouTube to see the latest messages from our teaching and preaching ministries. Again, our website is hickorycornersbible.org.